Oh, stop it! Oh, 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 stop that, stop that. Oh my God, mate. Now you tell me those pilots weren't like, oh, flipping heck, hold on a minute. Oh my goodness.
One of the most watched videos on the BBC website today is of an American Airlines flight managing to land safely at London's Heathrow Airport despite strong winds from Storm Gerrit, which has swept across much of Britain. In a clip filmed by aviation enthusiasts Big Jet TV, the cameraman can be heard begging the plane to stop as it bounced down onto the runway.
Oh, 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 stop it. Oh, stop that. Stop that. Oh my God, mate. Now you tell me those pilots weren't like, oh, flipping heck, hold on a minute. Oh my goodness me.
I don't know why I bother broadcasting when there is someone who is so good at it as Jerry Dyer, the presenter of Big Jet TV, who filmed those words. And Jerry's with us on the line. Hi, Jerry.
Hi there, good afternoon. How are you doing, Todd?
It is fantastic to have you. And we've also, this is actually me, James Reynolds, in the studio here. We've got
James, yeah, and Todd Smith, yes.
Yeah, and Todd Smith. Well, we can do a double introduction now. Todd Smith is a former pilot joining us as well. And Todd, firstly, let's go to you. I don't know if you heard Jerry's comments willing that plane to land at Heathrow amid those heavy winds. I don't know if you've seen the clip, but you must have had many heavy landings yourself during winds. What's it like?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, James, and thanks for your brilliant work in documenting this, Jerry. Yeah, I think that I have seen the clip, and it was certainly a very hairy landing. There is obviously a lot of experience in aviation crew, and we're regularly trained for those sorts of landings. There's also a lot of very good technology on board the aircraft. So we have something called an auto thrust setting, and if we have a strong headwind or crosswind, then there's a very clever computer which calculates the additional energy that's required to keep the aircraft at a safe speed through the air throughout those gusts as well. And there's also the option at any point to increase to full power and to go around if it wasn't deemed safe enough or stable enough to continue the approach. So yeah, ironically now I'm in an organisation called Safe Landing. I've left the aviation industry to campaign for sustainability, because unfortunately extreme weather events like this storm and the clear air turbulence events are becoming much more frequent in the future. So we are going to see more significant threats to aviation workers, and yeah, it's just great to have Jerry there documenting it as the extreme weather continues.
Jerry, I should tell our audience that you're pretty well known in the aviation industry and actually here in the UK for your commentaries. Why do you do it?
Well, my father flew back in the day Constellations, DC-8s, Canadair CL-44 Swingtails, Britannias, that sort of stuff. Really old school aircraft, all analog displays, fly-by cable, no fly-by-wire or anything like that. So he was a bit of a swashbuckler. He was a freighter pilot as well. So I have no doubt he had a few sketchy landings in his time, I'd imagine, going into all these different airfields around the world. But like Todd's saying, the weather systems have definitely picked up, and we are sort of like regularly seeing these storms come across, and that for us is just it's something that's entertaining, but just going back to why I do it because of my love for aviation and my fascination with aviation, flight, engineering, the technical side of it and everything, but it is a wonderful it's probably the best job I've ever had in my life, really, because of the audience that I have. And because of my subscribers and members around the world who are just as enthusiastic as I am. It's just I'm their eyes and ears, really, on the spot. But I must say that landing from yesterday, if you're not seeing it on video and you're wondering why I'm going, ooh, 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 and Todd will probably agree with me here, that it's not often that you see an aircraft get into a situation where it's almost oscillating, where the aircraft makes a sudden movement and then has to make a huge correction the opposite way, a bit like oversteering a car in a turn, where you're having to make all these corrections, and that's why you have to really hand it to these pilots, because of the fact that it's not just a steering wheel. It's like, it's a yoke, or in the case of an Airbus, a side stick, but there's a lot more going on with their feet, and that's where that training really comes in terms of handling these particular situations. And with the high winds, that's more likely that we're going to see that more of this in the future, I would imagine.
I'm tempted just to sit back, since you two know so much more about aviation. But Jerry, presenter of Big Jet TV, any questions for Todd, the former pilot?
Yeah, well, Todd, we obviously discuss, because we have quite a number of pilots who are members on the show, as well as obviously technicians and engineers and so on and so forth. So, either my questions get answered by them, or the audience questions get all answered by them. A lot of stuff that I learned from my father, but it's obviously a lot more advanced now. I've flown with Zane Dunning on the 787 in pretty high winds on the simulator down at Gatwick, and it is quite remarkable that when you see the interior of a flight deck with a pilot battling the conditions, and it is just the one pilot as well. It's not, you have an observational pilot, the NFP, but it is quite remarkable how, apart from the yoke, it's far more noticeable on a Boeing than it is on an Airbus, because his hand's kind of hidden away. But on a Boeing, where you see this movement, it looks very aggressive, but it is all counteractive, and the question that I would ask would be that, sort of like, at that particular moment, everything was controlled. The approach was controlled, the descent was controlled, the speed was controlled, but it was obviously a very sudden, because am I right in saying that they dip the left wing in to the prevailing wind in order to minimise the chance of the wind getting underneath the wing and kicking it the other way? Is that kind of right?
Great question, Jerry. Yeah, and all kudos to your father to fly the analog and fly-by-wire back in the day. I think I was quite spoiled flying the Airbus and all of the extra technology that we have on board now. But there's two different types of crosswind landing approach, and one is essentially where you position the aircraft off of the center line. So you would imagine that obviously in a day with no wind, you're facing exactly down the runway. But if you have a 20 or 25 knot crosswind from the right, and it's beyond a certain degrees, then you need to counteract that crosswind by turning the aircraft, and you're essentially facing away from the runway, and you're coming in sideways, and that keeps the aircraft on a track.
That's insane to see the track.
Yeah, so you maintain that track down towards the runway. And as you mentioned, sometimes we do also turn the wing into the wind, especially as we get lower down. There can be more turbulent air near the hangar buildings or the terminal building, or it's what's called the boundary layer. As we get close to the ground, it is more turbulent.
I'm so sorry for jumping in. I feel so embarrassed to interrupt your conversation, Todd and Jerry, but we are out of time at the moment. Todd Smith and Jerry Dyer. This is James Reynolds on the... James Reynolds with you on OS from the BBC World Service, live from our newsroom here in central London. And I would imagine, if you were listening in the last few minutes, that Todd and Jerry are probably still talking off air about aviation, given the immense interest they both had in the subject of bumpy landings. It wasn't much fun trying to interrupt them to get us to the end of that particular part of the programme, given the fact they probably could have spoken for several more hours about the passion that defines their life. And on that subject of people wanting to speak about the thing that most motivates them, I've really enjoyed over the last week or so being able to speak to some of the BBC's major experts about their own subjects, the subjects that they've been covering in 2023 and how they see that year. I spoke to Mariana Spring, the BBC's social media and disinformation correspondent, about her year, and in minutes or so's time we want to play a conversation I had with our tech editor, Zoe Kleinman, who's had a busy year with stories including the inevitable rise of artificial intelligence and